age now, you are telling me that all our doctors, the ones we normally see after they come to your studio, the way they analyze things, like Dr. Okoye, this man, you are telling me that government, Dr. Save Your Life, all those men, that they are not here. They are looking for elderly 70, 80 years men that have already retired. Tell me that they can't pay our cost to pay them. The reason why our doctors japa is because of the money they are paying them here. They are paying them enough. Now they want to go and gather people. I know my age father. When he is doing something, the hand will be shaking. So is it the person that you like to operate your wife? But
when you travel for your tradomedical treatment, isn't it old people that give you those treatments? Is it young people? When you travel, hold on, Mr. Chris. When you say your bone has shifted, or your bone is breaking, or your bone has broken, and then you need massaging, isn't it the elderly ones who administer those treatments to you?
I understand
yes. Give me an answer to that now. Give me an answer to that.
Federal government, they don't want to tell you the truth. They can't afford to pay this our children that just passed out from
No. You're not answering the question I asked you. Isn't it elderly people who offer tradomedical treatment?
In that one, there is something that elderly people can do. Not
so what is stopping them? What is stopping them from actually doing this other one? If they can do that one, what is stopping them from doing this?
See, the way you are smart in that studio, do you think that is the way my father will be smart?
It's a different job.
It's not the same thing.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me know how. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, right? Let's look at it from both angles, because we are quick to say, oh, Nigeria this, Nigeria that. If we can have tradomedical institutions, natural, what they call it again, healthcare practitioners, you go and meet them. Now this mama we sabi massage woman we won't born pikin. She know how, and it works. She's over 70, but she knows the job. So why don't you think that a medical doctor who's 70 would not be able to perform the same way? Maybe they might not be as fast as you think, but hey, once a soldier, always a soldier. 95.1 FM. Good evening. Oh,
my brother, good evening.
Welcome. Good evening.
Yes, how's the work doing?
Work is good, thank you.
This Evangelist Chukuma calling from Ahoda West, all the way.
All right, all the way from Ahoda. Go ahead.
Yeah. I said the plan. If it is in a normal way, it's okay. But I want to ask a simple question now, and for others to also answer the question. If now they do it like that way, what of our junior ones that are just graduated every year? Where are they going to fix them?
They are still going to be part of the system. We have too many patients with so little doctors and nurses to address them.
Yes. Now, if in that case, I'm now suggesting, in my own little opinion, that let the junior one be more number than the older one. If really they are sincere in what they want to do. And my own, let the junior ones be more in number than the older ones.
All right. Okay, I think I understand what you're trying to say. 95.1 FM. Good evening and welcome. What's your name?
Good evening.
Good evening. What's your name?
Wisdom. I'm calling from Alo.
Wisdom from Alo. All right, go ahead.
I see nothing wrong anyway, because all of these elderly men, all of them did the job with the experience. You understand?
Yeah.
So, at least keeping them and also having the young ones, so that if there's any complicated issues, at least they can help the young ones. So this elderly man, there is something that will happen. A young one will not be able to maybe bring an idea. You go and look for the older ones. Maybe so? So, we see nothing wrong. So It's a welcome development. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. He says nothing wrong with having a 70-year-old man. When I say 70-year-old man, my mind just goes to that skit. 70 years old man. Okay. But this is health we're talking about here. It's not just anything. It's health, though. If anything goes wrong, I don't know what the explanation would be. 95.1 FM. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, my brother Robert.
Welcome. What's your name, sir?
My name is Christian.
Christian. Go ahead.
Yes, suddenly, a 70-year-old man is no longer retired in his thinking. So when it comes to politics now, we'll be shouting. They are not for their age. They should give way.
As a politician at 70, you can still contest to become a president.
No, that time they will be too old, but now they can become a consultant.
Imagine.
And work for our people. No wahala. I just said they can remind us how we.
I'm together with you. I'm together with you on this one.
With experience, they can become consultants and advice because they have experience. But when they are politicians, they are too old. But we'll try. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm such a double. I'm a utility player here. I'm supporting and I'm opposing and I'm proposing at the same time. 95.1 FM. Good evening.
This time I call back.
All right, you just have 1 minute because of time.
Yes. Sorry, I just want to add something that is not related to this. Sorry, don't be offended. I don't know. What you Amaka this program she organized. I don't know. I've not been hearing.
Yeah. Well, so we've been having some issues we have to rectify in time. And then when we rectify those issues, she would be back on. But she's around. She's in the complex, and she would be on the news, the world news. But Lovey Dovey will be back very soon. I assure you. All right. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Hello, Mr. Dave Robert. My best.
Mr. Sam, you are our last caller for tonight. You just have 30 seconds, please.
Oh, you have been frustrating my call.
I haven't. Go straight to the point. We have to terminate.
Okay. A blessed evening to you. Mr. Dave Roberts, you see, when you have government that is not innovative and is very lazy, all they look at is how they can get money from the citizen and impoverish the citizen. I tell you, this is how they will be thinking. How can you tell me young men are Jakpari and you, instead of to find a creative way of sustaining them and building them, you are now looking at how to go and bring old men who are supposed to be resting and having good time with their grandchildren to come back in the system? Don't you know the human sense or mentality? This thing, Bolik, this thing, have some level of when he got to an age, they don't have to do so much. They have to just relax for some time and do certain things for some time. It's not bad to bring such people, 1 or 3, for their medical record and profession to be a consultant. Telling them to come back and be working, you'll be paying them as contract staff. Mr. David, this government of Jagaban, they have lost all sense of understanding and sense of doing things in the right perspective to get things right. And they say they are thinkers. I don't know what kind of thinking is this.
Okay. Because of time, we have to go. I'm sorry I couldn't take messages. Really sorry. The text message portal went down. We'll do justice to that tomorrow. We have to terminate the show now because we have a paid program coming up. Thank you so much. My name is Dave Robert. Do follow me on social media. On Facebook, David Melford Robert. And for our social media handles for Today FM, Today FM 951 live on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Stay tuned. We have a health program coming up next. And then at the top of the hour, the world news will be on. It's still Today 95.1 FM. Don't go anywhere.
95.1 FM, voice of the people.
Good day, listeners. Mama Ola is here to enlighten you on your health issue. Without good health, you cannot enjoy the great benefits of life. When sickness come, it dey rob person off in happiness. If you dey struggle with any disease or one health issue or the other, no think say they no fit treat am o. Our office address for Port Harcourt na number 43 Hada George by Ajib Junction. Our office address for Bayelsa na number 558 Melford Okilo Road, Piogbolo by Dimrose Junction, Yenagua. My phone number is 081 11 29 6399. I repeat, 081 11 29 6399. Ogbonge Abba practitioner. Health issues. Before we start treatment, we have a computer machine to detect all the problems in your body before we start treatment. After the test, Mama Ola go tell you where the thing they do you. Because if you dey keep these diseases, it fit go damage things where you don't fit cure again. Ranging from infertility, woman wey no fit carry belle, and man wey no fit give woman belle. Wetin dey cause infertility in woman body are infection, fibroid, hormonal imbalance, ovarian cyst, irregular monthly flow, PID, damage to the fallopian tube, and failure to ovulate. How do you know if you get infection as a woman? Infection dey cause noisy stomach, internal heat, itching or biting of body and private parts, rashes in the body or private parts. Infection dey cause worm like movement in the body, whitish or yellowish discharge with odor, smelly urine, colored urine, frequent urine, irregular menses, dark menses, scanty menses. How do you know if you have fibroid? You go dey get miscarriage, belle go dey big like say you get belle but pikin no dey inside. You go dey experience heavy menstrual bleeding. Menstrual periods go dey last more than a week. Pelvic go dey pain you. Your back and leg go dey pain you. Why not call me now on 081 11 29 6399. Our office address for Port Harcourt na number 43 Hada George by Ajib Junction. Our office address for Bayelsa na number 558 Melford Okilo Road, Piogbolo by Dimrose Junction, Yenagua. Hormonal imbalance is caused by environmental factors or contraceptive drugs. Hormonal imbalance dey cause scanty monthly flow. It dey stop monthly flow. Hormonal imbalance dey cause ovulation to stop. How do you know if you get blockage of the fallopian tube? Everything wey Oga put for inside your body will just come down immediately you stand up. If you know say you get all this problem or another, why not come meet Mama Ola Abba Center? Come tell her where the thing they touch you. God don't bring us into this world. Make we multiply. Why your own case won't come dey different? Mama Ola no be God, but na person wey God create for a reason, and this reason na to help men and women wey no fit get pikin. Mama Ola na nurse before, but she come comot her hand for that nursing work, come put her hand for that mama and papa old business wey na to dey produce better roots and herbs wey go help all yamayama problems for woman body. Make you call me now on 081 11 29 6399. I repeat, 081 11 29 6399. You wey be man, make you too come with your wife, come do test. Mama Ola husband, Baba Ola na him go handle your matter.
Are you the type of man that is unable to get and keep an erection firm enough for performance? Are you the type of man that cannot stay long on your partner? Are you the type of man that cannot do more than one round? Abi your own otoku is too small for your age? Abi your sperm is too watery and unable to impregnate your partner?
Our office address for Port Harcourt na number 43 Ada George by Ajib Junction. Our office address for Yenagua, Bayelsa State na
number 558 Melford Okilo Road, Biobolo by Dimrose Junction, Yenagua, or call 081 072 277 79. I repeat, 081 072 277 79.
Radio has never been this good. Today, 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt. Every day, every hour, when the big stories break, depend on our 24-hour news team to bring you the latest. Today, 95.1 FM. Whether it's happening in Port Harcourt, South Sound, Nigeria, or around the world, we've got you covered. On air, online, delivering balanced news and unbiased analysis. Today, 95.1 FM.
This is Today, 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt.
Good evening. This is the World News on your premium talk radio. Today, 95.1 FM Port Harcourt. I am Amaka Felix. In the headlines, federal government assures Nigerians of home delivery of passports from next year. FCT Minister Nyesom Wike slams EU over report on 2023 Nigerian presidential election. NSCDC reiterates commitment to curtail oil theft in River State. And on the foreign scene, High Court in Kenya suspends police deployments to Haiti. Details in a bit. The federal government says Nigerians will have their passports delivered to them at home, offices and other places of choice from next year. Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tunji Ojo, who made this known at an event in Lagos, said Nigerians will soon begin to experience what he described as sweetness of the passport application, as the ministry has started the automation of the process. He said technology would be deployed throughout the process to make it as seamless as possible. Tunji Ojo also disclosed that the integrity of travel documents will be restored via data harmonization. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has slammed the European Union over its report on the 2023 Nigerian presidential election. Wike said the report failed to give the true position of the last election held in the country, but created a wrong impression in the minds of the electorate, especially in River State. Wike expressed his dissatisfaction when EU Ambassador to Nigeria, Samuel Isopi, paid him a working visit in his office. The minister said the EU was supposed to serve as an observer during the last election and not to present a report that would not give the true picture of Nigerian democracy. European Union Election Observation Mission, through Chief Observer Barry Andres, had in June presented its final report on the last Nigerian general elections and highlighted 6 priority areas with recommendations. Wike, however, said Nigerian laws cannot be the same as those of the European Union because they have different environments. The Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, projects that Nigeria will become a net exporter of petroleum products by next year. Speaking at the Pengassan Energy and Labour Summit 2023 in Abuja, Kyari said as a resource-dependent country, Nigeria should not be exporting 100% of its crude as it does at present. According to him, this means Nigerians will have sufficient volumes in the country and those that can leave the country. The NNPC boss, however, made it clear that refining crude oil in the country would not necessarily bring down the local price of petrol, which he said was controlled by the international price. Government-owned refineries have been moribund for years, but the federal government has assured Nigerians that some of the refineries will become functional again soon as part of efforts to end importation of petrol into the country. The River State Commandant of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Basil Igwe-Boeze, has reiterated the commitment of the command under his administration to curtail the menace of oil theft, pipeline vandalism, and vowed to deal decisively with any personnel caught aiding illegal oil refining activities in River State. Commandant Igwe-Boeze, who read the riot act to officers serving in the anti-vandal unit, marine unit, component commanders and general duty officers, stressed that the Commandant General, Ahmed Abubakar Audi, has zero tolerance for any act that would denigrate or degrade the corporate image of the NSCDC across the nation. The NSCDC boss, in a statement by the Command Public Relations Officer Olufemi Ayodele, emphasized the need to imbibe professionalism, discipline and implicit compliance with the core standard operating procedures and ethical values. The statement further relayed that 3 months after assumption of duty by Commandant Igweboeze, the command has made 105 arrests ranging from illegal dealings in petroleum products, criminal conspiracy to aid the operation of illegal oil refining, illegal mining and dredging, advance-free fraud, sexual and gender-based violence, amongst others. Commandant Igweboeze, while soliciting for more credible and actionable intelligence from members of the public, affirmed that the command under his watch is fully ready to partner with reputable stakeholders in the government, civil society organizations, religious leaders, community youths, and sister security agencies to rid Rivers State of the menace of oil theft and its negative effects on the environment. Members of a local vigilante in Ikwere local government area of River State have said they are not ready to sleep over activities of criminals and cultists across communities in the area. The chief security officer of the local government area, Dixon Mbobanku, who was responding to issues of security in the area, said cultism and other related crimes have been reduced to a barest minimum. Dixon, who also disclosed that stipends for the local vigilante has not been regular, however assured that the security in Ikwere communities cannot be compromised. He urged the residents to support the security by giving useful information for the interest of sustaining the peace.
We don't sleep over those hoodlums. We're after them anywhere we got information that they are. We'll make sure that we go there and chase them out. So you couldn't come in the school and come. Nothing is going. No, the challenge that we're having now is just those criminal enhancements. The challenge we're having now over there, taking their cow to those farmers' farm to where they are rearing their cow to damage their crops. So and we are into the matter. But we know that we cannot get it 100%. And by grace of God, you couldn't come in the school and come. We cannot record anything like courtesan or kidnapping any longer in the local government. The chairman have been trying before this time for their logistics, but within 6 or 5 months ago, based on the way the country is now, for Ospark side, nothing have been happening. But I know the chairman that I'm following. Short period and still do some.
Residents of Rumekini in Obiakwa local government area of River State say the current ban on tricycles operation in the area has reduced the crime rate in the community. Speaking in an interview with Today FM, the residents said there have been complaints of bag snatching and armed robbery perpetrated by unidentified tricycle riders. Despite concerns that the restricted operation of the vehicles would affect the movements of residents in the area, the respondents gave positive reactions concerning the time restriction.
As they've left here, the crime has because so many of their activities in the evening, robbery, snatching of bags, many of them are unknown drivers that were operating here. At least many of them are their vehicle are marked.
So it's that 7, then we'll shut down. Then people will be running in. Same price, that one also follow us. So it's not like game. We make it a peaceful community now. But we used to do that. We used to use keke to rob some areas. We make it because something have already. So it's not a bit. It's a good thing. By 7, keke will stop. Then vehicle will now running.
Actually, they cause traffic congestion. So for that, to enable car movement, their absence here contributes. Can reduce crime, yes. But still at that, the crime here need to be checked.
Rumekini community had in August announced a ban on the operations of tricycles, popularly known as keke, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. for security reasons. Some traders at Alakahia market have cried out over the daily rise in the prices of food commodities. Speaking in an interview with Today FM's correspondent, the traders blamed the situation on the high cost of transportation. The traders also disclosed that the high cost of commodities scares buyers away, leading to a drop in sales.
Go to market today on this carabines. We do buy it at the rate of, we divide it by pence, rate of 2,600. But today it's 2,900. So the price keep on increasing every day. Like if you want to buy something of, let's say 1,000, and the money I have in this night, you have to adjust. But so it's not affecting us. Seriously, I'm telling you, when they move as in transport, and everything have increased, landlords are increasing their rent. Like where we used to pay, formerly we used to pay 200,000 a year. Now landlords say that it's now 450. It's affecting us serious. Like Indomie now, Indomie have increased. How oil have increased their price. Almost even the spaghetti has golden penny that will only buy a carton rate of 10,000. Now it's 11,000.
2 months ago, bag of rice, the one I bought, mango, it was 49,000 naira. Then August it was 50,000 naira. Now some people are selling 52,000 naira, 1,000 naira. So some customers, they will not like to buy it. They will say that it costs. They will go. They will be looking for the cheaper one. The cheaper one, there is no cheaper one that's less than 200 naira. You understand? It's actually thing that is worrying. Last month to this time, no changes. Everything's increasing. If you go to market today, tomorrow, maybe you buy bread today, 200 naira. When you go to market 2 days later, you will buy it 250. Everything is increasing cost. Like I went to village market last 2 weeks ago. When I was going, it was 2,200 naira. Coming back, I spent another 4,000 naira like that because actually it is this transportation that is causing this increase of things.
This is the world news on Today 95.1 FM Port Harcourt. After the break, more news, sports and foreign stories. Stay tuned.
Every day, every hour, when the big stories break, depend on our 24-hour news team to bring you the latest. Today, 95.1 FM.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. An environmental activist, Fine-Face Dumnamene, says the reason for the continued agitation by communities in River State over the pipeline surveillance contract is because the bunkerers who were the targets for the job have been sidelined. Dumnamene, who spoke in an interview with Today FM Tifunaya Obeme Ndukwe in reaction to the protest that has rocked Rumekwe community in the past weeks, said a greater percentage of the surveillance contract was given to youths who were not involved in illegal refining activities. The executive director of Youth and Environmental Advocacy Center added that the pushback against the illegal refining of crude has left the youths involved in the act stranded, noting that the surveillance job, which was to serve as an alternative livelihood for them, is not forthcoming, hence the continued agitation.
The reason for the continuous agitation is the contracts being managed by some former militants in the Niger Delta were meant to be used to address the issue of crude oil theft, artisanal refining and pipeline vandalism by giving the jobs to those who were part of that process as alternative livelihood opportunities, while government is still working at other mitigation measures. But now when they got these jobs now, they gave greater percentage to other youths who were not involved in the act. As a result of that, the youths that were involved in the act are still continually carrying out the act. So the agitation you see in communities is that there is now a strengthened security process, bombing by the security men, Tantita security is also pushing, and community leaders are also against those involved in this. So as a result of that, there is a total reduction in artisanal refinery activities, and these boys are now looking elsewhere. Where else should they look into? They now started looking into the pipeline security surveillance contract as where they ought to have been getting some stipends from. But when it is not forthcoming, you begin to see agitation.
Dumnamene said the surveillance job was introduced to serve as a kind of amnesty for persons who are involved in artisanal refining of crude oil to end the menace in the Niger Delta.
The pipeline surveillance contract was meant to be some form of amnesty for youth who are involved in this, but because it is not properly applied, you now have the people that are supposed to be beneficiaries not being beneficiaries. This is where the amnesty, like pipeline surveillance contract that gives them stipends to protect the pipeline, comes in. And then you have the other proposals we make, like, trying to give them modular refinery to do this and trying to look at the presidential artisanal crude oil refining development initiative, the PACO, they come in. So government have to line up some of these processes to address these issues in communities. Without that, I don't think they are really going to be able to win the war against pipeline vandalism in communities. It has reduced, but it has not really gone down as expected. You give the yam to the goats to protect, so that when the goats eat the yam, you know who have actually eaten the yam. That was the target of the pipeline surveillance jobs to agitators in the Niger Delta. It's not a way of encouraging bad behavior, but to address the issue of pipeline vandalism.
They have been processed in Rumekwe community, which has lasted for 3 weeks before the Nigerian army dispersed them last week. The people are calling on the federal government to give the pipeline surveillance contract to members of host communities. Meanwhile, the people of Iba in Emoha local government area of River State have insisted that awarding pipeline surveillance contracts to an indigene of the community will bring to an end the activities of illegal oil refining in the area. The people of Iba, under the aegis of Uwaha Concerned People's Assembly, spoke in support to the call by Emoha Council Chairman Chidi Lloyd on government agency responsible for the award of pipeline surveillance contracts to review the process and ensure that pipeline security jobs are awarded to members of the pipeline-bearing communities rather than to people of outside. A member of the group who read out their position called on the multinational operating in the area to consider indigenes of pipeline-bearing communities over politicians so as to forestall a reoccurrence of the tragedy that claimed several lives. They also questioned why someone from Iba cannot be made the contractor for pipeline surveillance or given scholarships like other oil-rich communities, while complaining of neglect and marginalization in areas of infrastructural development, human capacity building, and other basic social amenities.
Our view gears towards 1. Awarding oil pipeline contract to Iba town to indigenous contractors. Are you comfortable that a stranger who does not know the route through Iba forest is awarded the pipeline surveillance contract with so much financial empowerment in our land while we remain hungry? The stranger only shows up gallivanting himself and whisk away to develop his community with the money gotten from Iba, leaving Iba still undeveloped, not minding what the Iba community will likely suffer and the effect that the government frowns at. Why can't Iba indigene man the SPDC manifold in Iba? Why can't Iba sons and daughters attain SPDC scholarship? Why is the Iba man not employable by SPDC? Why is SPDC under the guise of the government subverting our rights and using the military soldiers to intimidate process?
The aggrieved Iba group stressed the negative impact of unemployment on the people, insisting that awarding the surveillance contract to an indigene from the community will reduce crime.
Commodities in the market increase vehemently without pardon to the unemployed, making livelihood difficult to all. And this is a reason why customers patronize the illegal oil bunkering. What we are implying is that all the pipeline contracts, all the contracts that has to do with oil companies in Iwa community, in Eba precisely, if it is not being given to an indigene, the process of oil bunkering will not stop. Yes. Because they cannot be enjoying when the indigenes of this community are suffering. We are calling on the incumbent governor of River State, Sim, who have reinstated that the contract should be given to indigenes. We are calling him to put words into action.
It would interest you to know that over 30 persons lost their lives in a fire outbreak on the site of illegally refined oil products, which several individuals and authorities have blamed on indiscriminate awarding of pipeline surveillance contracts. In another development, a group of persons are preferring ways of sustaining the peace and security currently being experienced in Iba. Reports available reveal that for over a decade, Iba has suffered court violence and other forms of insecurity, which resulted to the loss of lives and property in the area. But the head College of Administration of Iba Connect, Dr. Bigman Wabweze, who spoke to Today FM after a forum in Port Harcourt, disclosed plans to use a program called Iba Connect to address issues that have affected the community and to sensitize the people on the need to remain peaceful and sustain the existing peace in the area. Wabweze also revealed plans to facilitate amnesty for genuine Iba sons and daughters for the sake of peace and development.
The essence is to see how we can deepen peace in the community. And I want to seize the opportunity to invite our brothers and sisters all over the world, our kids and kin. All hands has to be on deck. We want them back home so that we can begin to build and sustain the existing peace that the community is currently experiencing. It's just a clarion call, it's an appeal that wherever they are, especially sons and daughters of our community. Unfortunately, as it is, we lost a lot of people, which ordinarily ought not to be. But the carnival will also be an opportunity for us to talk to ourselves, advise ourselves, and see how we can begin to order ourselves in the right direction.
On their part, Dr. Azubike Oke, who is the chairman of Iba Peace Walk, and the alternate chairman, Osobi Wejinya, said the event is aimed at charging every son and daughter of Iba that the responsibility of enthroning lasting peace and security in the area is everyone's business.
The Iba Peace Walk Carnival is not a celebration of peace per se. It is rather a charge on our people, every son and daughter of Iba community, to turn a new leaf, to embrace the new order and new consciousness of deepening the peace that we have realized, and to also work towards the development of the community. The job of developing the community is that of everybody. It's not that of one person. That is the message that IBA Connect Association is sending to the world.
Without unity, there won't be any progress. And we all have come as an enlightened persons. IBA is very, very enlightened in the Committee of States. The chairman has already said for over a decade right now, we have had no peace at home, but we have all come as a body to ensure that this peace is returned home.
On the foreign scene, a high court in Kenya has suspended plans by the government to deploy police officers to Haiti or any other country pending the hearing of a petition. The judge cited issues raised in the application as being of national importance and public interest. One of the petitioners, former presidential candidate Ekuri Okut, said the proposed deployment was unconstitutional. It is argued that there is a question mark over whether regular police can actually be deployed on international assignments. Okut argued that the country cannot afford to spare 1,000 officers before addressing insecurity at home. The court will issue further directions at the end of this month. South Africa's Constitutional Court has ruled that convicted killer Oscar Pistorius has served more than half his sentence for the 2013 murder of his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp, which means he is technically eligible for parole. The court found that the former athlete, also known as the Blade Runner, passed the halfway mark on 21st March this year. Pistorius was sentenced to 6 years in 2016, but that sentence was increased to 13 years and 5 months in 2017. A parole hearing was arranged for last March, but it collapsed after the Correctional Services Department said he had not served half his sentence as required for parole. In sports now, former Premier League star Emile Heskey has backed Manchester United legend Wayne Rooney to succeed as head coach of English Championship club Birmingham City. Birmingham parted ways with John Eustace today, with Rooney expected to take over after he recently left Major League Soccer side DC United. They are currently sixth in England's second tier as Rooney looks to guide them back into the English Premier League. Rooney had a spell in charge of Derby County after retiring as a professional footballer. The former striker now has several years of management under his belt. To end the news, here is a summary of the major stories. The federal government has assured Nigerians of home delivery of passports from next year. The FCT Minister Nyesom Wike has slammed the EU over its report on the 2023 Nigerian presidential election. We told you that the NSCDC has reiterated its commitment to curtail oil theft in River State. And on the foreign scene, you heard that a high court in Kenya has suspended the deployment of police to Haiti. That was the news as edited by Stella Sasongo. For comments and inquiries, please call 0818-389-2850 or send your emails to news@todayfmlive.com. You can also read our stories on www.todayfmlive.com. I am Amaka Felix. Good evening.
Today's news, today's entertainment, today's sports, today's issues. Today on Today 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt.
Talk radio. I listen to a lot of talk radio.
95.1 FM.
365 days around the clock, around the world, non-stop talk, news and sports. The latest hit and the greatest memories on radio, serving our community, spreading love and color, because we are Today 95.1 FM, voice of the people.
Becoming free, that's the grace of God.
This This is Today 95.1 FM Port Harcourt, Voice of the People, and it is time again for a rundown of the foreign news stories that made the headlines in the world today. I am Amaka Felix. In the headlines, Niger cuts down budgets by 40% over impact of sanctions following 26 July coup. United Nations says more than 123,000 people displaced in the Gaza Strip. Israeli security forces carry out operations to rescue hostages taken by Palestinian militants. Report claims Hamas' deadly attack on Israel on Sunday was backed by Iran. Details in a bit. Niger has been forced to cut its budget by 40% over the impact of sanctions and suspension of aid after the 26 July coup. There are fears that the sanctions may worsen the economic situation in Niger, one of the world's poorest countries. In a statement, the military junta announced a 2023 budget cut from $5.3 billion to $3 billion, although details of the cuts are lacking. At least 40% of the West African country's budget support this year was expected to come from external partners. The coup, which ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, attracted regional and international sanctions, including border closures, frozen assets, and halted aid supplies. The import-dependent country has recorded soaring food and commodity prices and limited supply of medicines owing to trade restrictions. Kenyan authorities have arrested 2 police officers who were found trafficking 13 people from Ethiopia using a police vehicle. According to local media, the officers were transporting 8 Ethiopians, 4 Eritreans, and a Sudanese national in a vehicle belonging to Kenya's border police unit. The officers, who were armed with police-issued firearms, were intercepted in Kenya's northwestern county of Turkana, which borders Ethiopia. Authorities say that they also detained the foreigners, who will likely be arraigned in a Kenyan court or repatriated to their countries. The foreigners said that they were transiting through Kenya on their way to South Africa. A Kenyan High Court has blocked the government's plans to deploy police officers to Haiti or any other country pending the hearing of a petition. The judge cited issues raised in the application as being of national importance and public interest. One of the petitioners, former presidential candidate Ekuri Okot, said the proposed deployment was unconstitutional. Last week, ethnic clashes in western Kenya left 7 people dead. Kenya's police have begun selection of officers ahead of the planned deployment to Haiti, which still needs parliamentary approval. A document seen by newsmen from the head of police force requests with urgency a list of names from the General Service Unit. It also details the requirements needed by the prospective officers. The Kenyan constitution requires the government to get the go-ahead from parliament before deploying forces internationally. Speaking on Sunday, Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki said there would be no shortcuts or violation of the constitution when it comes to getting approval for the deployment. Kenya had offered to lead a multinational police force to the Caribbean nation to quell mounting gang violence. The country pledged 1,000 of its officers to help restore order. The UN Security Council gave the green light to the mission following a call for help from the Haitian government. Tanzania's embassy in Israel is trying to trace the whereabouts of 2 Tanzanian students said to be missing in the region of Israel, which was hit by the Hamas attack over the weekend. Ambassador Alex Kalua told BBC that his mission has been in contact with approximately 350 Tanzanians around the country. According to the embassy, there are around 350 Tanzanians living in Israel, including around 260 students pursuing agricultural programs. Dozens of Mauritian pilgrims are stranded in Bethlehem following the latest conflict between the Palestinian militant group Hamas and Israel. The group includes 36 members, mainly from the Catholic parish of St. Helene in the second biggest city of Kurepi. Father Gerard Mongolard, who is accompanying them, said the parishioners are doing well and are currently staying in a hotel in Bethlehem. They were due to take a flight on Sunday evening to Turkey, from where they were to return home. However, many airlines cancelled flights in the wake of the Hamas military offensive on Israel. Firefighters say a landslide caused by heavy rainfall has killed at least 23 people in Cameroon's capital Yaoundé as they searched for more victims. Landslides are frequent during the rainy season, where houses are sometimes built precariously on the city's many hills. The latest incident occurred yesterday evening in the district of Mbankolo, northwest of Yaoundé, which is home to nearly 3 million people. Torrential rain caused the dam holding back an artificial lake sitting on higher ground to burst. Images broadcast on TV showed an entire section of a hill had collapsed and what remained of houses apparently constructed from wood, dried earth bricks and metal sheathing. Away from Africa to the rest of the world, a spokesperson for the United States Department of State, Matthew Miller, says at least 9 Americans have been killed in the attack launched by Hamas terrorists on Israel. Earlier, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, in a statement, said that 4 American citizens lost their lives in the assault yesterday. Earlier on Sunday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. was working overtime to verify reports of missing and dead Americans after Hamas launched an unprecedented attack against Israel. However, it has been reported that the death toll has risen to 9 as Israel ordered a complete siege in Gaza. Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer also affirmed that Americans are among the scores of hostages being held in Gaza. The UK, France and Germany have all pledged to step up security measures amid fears of attacks against members of the Jewish community after videos emerged of people apparently celebrating deadly attacks launched by Hamas militants. The surprise attacks saw gunmen cross the border from Gaza into Israel under the cover of rocket fire, seizing hostages and leaving more than 600 people dead. Social media footage shows people waving Palestinian flags in the streets of Berlin and London following the violence. London's Metropolitan Police announced on Saturday in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, its decision to increase policing patrols across the capital in order to provide a visible presence and reassurance to our communities. UK Home Secretary Suella Braverman said she spoke with British anti-Semitism charity, the Community Security Trust, to ensure that the government is doing everything necessary for the protection of our Jewish communities. Similarly, in Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz emphasized in a statement on Sunday that the German government will not accept it when the heinous attacks against Israel are celebrated. The death toll from flash floods unleashed by a glacial lake bursting its banks in India's Himalayas climbed to 74, with 101 people still missing days after the calamity struck. Following days of torrential rain in the northeastern state of Sikkim, West Bengal, Sikkim's Chief Secretary Vijay Pathak told newsmen that rescuers have found 25 bodies in the state and also bodies of 8 army personnel in the neighboring downstream states. The search for survivors was hampered by damaged roads, poor communication and bad weather, and residents were struggling to clear sludge and debris in the wake of one of the worst disasters in the remote region in more than 50 years. Israel has pounded the besieged Gaza Strip for a second night in a row after formally declaring war against the Palestinian Hamas group. Its military says some 100,000 reserve troops have amassed near Gaza. According to the UN Humanitarian Relief Agency, Israeli air attacks and shelling aimed at houses and apartment buildings have displaced over 120,000 Palestinians in Gaza. More than 1,100 people have reportedly been killed in the latest fighting between Hamas and the Israeli military, including 436 Palestinians. Israeli security forces are carrying out operations to rescue hostages taken by Palestinian militants from Gaza and clear areas they seized on Saturday. The military said troops had secured 22 locations in southern Israel, but were still sweeping through another 8. The surprise attack by hundreds of gunmen from Hamas under the cover of intense rocket fire has reportedly killed at least 600 people in Israel. More than 310 people in Gaza have been killed in retaliatory Israeli strikes. Over 400 Palestinian gunmen have been killed and dozens arrested during the fighting in Israel, according to the Israeli military. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel was going into a long and difficult war. He also warned Hamas, which governs Gaza, that its hideouts would be reduced to rubble. Emergency teams in Afghanistan are racing to rescue people from the rubble left by a powerful earthquake that struck the west of the country. Hundreds of people are feared dead after the 6.3 magnitude quake hit villages in Herat province on Saturday. With communications down and many roads blocked, rescue workers are struggling to reach remote areas. Thousands of people have been injured. The United Nations and other organizations have begun to rush in emergency supplies. The United Nations said more than 123,000 people have been displaced in the Gaza Strip since the outbreak of the conflict between Palestinian militants and Israel. More than 73,000 people are sheltering in schools, some of which have been designated emergency shelters. Israel has launched hundreds of strikes on Gaza since Saturday, when Hamas militants launched deadly attacks in Israel and fired thousands of rockets at the country. Adnan Hasna, a spokesman for the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, said he expected the numbers to rise further. Senior members of Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah claimed that Hamas' surprise attack on Israel that killed at least 700 people yesterday was given the green light by Iranian security officials. According to news reports, Hamas plotted the air, land and sea invasions with help from officers of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The report says the official go-ahead for the attack was given at a Monday meeting between the IRGC and Hamas officials in Beirut. 4 other Iranian-backed military groups were reported to be at the meeting, including members of Hamas and Hezbollah. However, a senior Hamas official has denied the report, stressing in a statement that they acted alone. That story from Iran concludes tonight's edition of The World Today, as produced by Odinakachi Celestin of the News Department. But before we go, here is a summary of the stories that made the headline. We told you that Niger cut down its budget by 40% over the impact of sanctions following 26 July coup. You heard that United Nations said more than 123,000 people has been displaced in the Gaza Strip. We also told you that Israeli security forces carried out operations to rescue hostages taken by Palestinian militants. Finally, report claims Hamas' deadly attack on Israel on Sunday was backed by Iran. Till same time tomorrow, do have a lovely evening and thank you for listening.
Radio has never been this good. Today, 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt.
It's a triple experience on this frequency. Talk, news, and sports. Right here, every day, on Today 95.1 FM. The voice of the people.
300 365 days, around the clock, around the world, non-stop talk, news and sports. The latest hit and the greatest memories on radio. Serving our community, spreading love and color. Because we are Today 95.1 FM, voice of the people.
Becoming free, that's the grace of God. Talk radio.
I listen to a lot of talk radio.
95.1 FM.
What's a successful business without sales? And what is sales without an audience? Well, do you know that you can reach 8 million listeners across 6 states in 2 geopolitical zones all at once? How? With Today 95.1 FM, you can get millions of people to know about your business. And what does that mean to you? More sales. Call 081 389 2850 now for more information.
Okay, all right. All you need to know about this one is that
95.1 FM. Such a unique dial.
BBC World Service. I'm Audrey Brown in London with Focus on Africa. International concern and diplomatic pressure following attacks and retaliation between Israel and Hamas. Hundreds of people have died, thousands have been injured, and tens of thousands are fleeing bombardment. How is Africa reacting? In Mauritius, the courts have decriminalized same-sex relations on the basis that the ban reflected colonial era rather than indigenous values.
To be honest, I couldn't even believe it. At some point, I thought I was still in my bed sleeping and dreaming about that, but it really happened and I was just happy.
And I'd like you to meet the South African teenager breaking records in the world of motor racing. That's all on the BBC Tonight in Focus. First, the news.
BBC News, I'm John Shea. The Israeli Defense Minister says Israel is tightening its blockade on the Gaza Strip into a full siege following Saturday's unprecedented attack by Hamas militants. Yoav Gallant said Gaza would be denied food, water and fuel. The Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel's response to the killing of more than 700 Israelis would be terrible. The Israeli army says it's regained control of all southern communities attacked by Palestinian fighters, although isolated resistance may remain. John Donnison is in Jerusalem.
The sense here is that Israel's offensive in Gaza is just beginning. Its military says it hit more than 500 Hamas targets overnight, and then around lunchtime, airstrikes again intensified. Palestinian health officials say at least 15 people were killed in an Israeli attack in the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp in the north of the Strip. The Israeli Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant, has ordered a complete blockade of Gaza, home to more than 2 million people.
Israeli officials and a Hamas spokesperson have denied reports that a prisoner exchange was being negotiated. Earlier reports said mediators from Qatar had contacted Hamas to try to negotiate the release of Israeli women and children. The reports suggested 36 Palestinian women and children detained in Israel would be released in exchange. A Hamas official, Bassem Naim, told the BBC hostages would be looked after.
Our chief commander, at the beginning of the operation, he said it clearly: respect elderly, respect civilians, respect children, don't kill anyone who is not involved directly in the battle. Now it is too early to talk about what we have and where and who is responsible for this, but we are committed and we are obliged to treat our hostages in a very human, dignified way.
The Israeli army says its forces have killed a number of gunmen who crossed into Israeli territory from Lebanon. The army says its troops have been backed by helicopter gunships. It hasn't yet given any information on the affiliation of the gunmen. A Hezbollah official said the Lebanese armed group had not mounted any operation into Israel. Officials in Cameroon say 30 people are now known to have died after a dam burst in the capital Yaoundé. It followed heavy rainfall on Sunday. Richard Hamilton reports.
Torrential rain caused the dam to burst, setting off a deadly landslide. An official said the dam, built by a German company, appeared to buckle from the water pressure. Television footage showed a section of a hill had collapsed and about 30 houses were destroyed by a sea of mud. Landslides are quite common in Yaoundé, where shacks made from wood, dried earth bricks and corrugated iron are often built onto the city's many hills.
This is the latest world news from the BBC. This year's Nobel Prize for Economics has been awarded to the American economic historian Claudia Goldin. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences said the Harvard University professor had been recognized for her pioneering research on the role of women in labour markets and the key drivers behind the gender pay gap. Europe's main human rights organisation, the Council of Europe, has given its top annual award to the imprisoned Turkish activist and philanthropist Osman Kavala. The Václav Havel Prize, worth $63,000, is one of the most prestigious human rights awards. Osman Kavala was given a life sentence in Turkey last year, having been in detention since 2017. Fresh tremors continue to trigger panic in western Afghanistan, where a strong earthquake on Saturday flattened whole villages, killing more than 1,000 people. The Taliban authorities have given a much higher number of casualties. Some villagers say they've lost most of their family members. Chinese state media say more than 700 suspects involved in online scamming in Myanmar have been caught and transferred to Chinese custody. They're the latest to be deported as part of Beijing's attempt to shut down scams orchestrated from rebel-held areas of Myanmar. Will Leonardo reports.
A photograph released by China's Xinhua news agency shows a long line of suspects at a border checkpoint with their hands tied. In total, more than 2,000 people have now been deported to China from Myanmar. The online scams from remote border areas controlled by Burmese rebel groups have become a worsening headache for Beijing. Many of those involved are Chinese nationals targeting people back home with fake investment offers, cryptocurrency schemes and romance fraud. Myanmar has increasingly fallen into lawlessness since a coup in 2021 by a military that Beijing has backed with arms and financial support.
And that's the latest BBC World News.
Hello, I'm Audrey Brown, and today in Focus on Africa, the Formula One dreams of a young man from South Africa. It's a family affair, and Mika Abrams' proud mother Denise explains how her son has been making history.
He's the first and youngest South African to receive South African Protea colours, which is the highest accolade you can receive in motorsport. He was also the second youngest in the world to win Formula 4, and then in the last month made history again by becoming the first African to get a double pole.
And gay rights activists in Mauritius celebrate an historic win.
I feel like a bit more relief from that constant fear of being a gay person in Mauritius, that I could be arrested for being who I am and for practicing my life with another male. So it's just like a feeling of freedom, and it kind of giving that hope that one day we'll be in a better country, in a better world.
But first we go to events in the Middle East. It would have been hard to miss the unfolding situation in Israel and Palestine. Many hundreds of people have been killed, kidnapped and injured. Tens of thousands are fleeing right now as bombs drop on their homes. Families fear for the safety of their loved ones who've been abducted and have yet to be returned. It began on Saturday morning with a wave of unprecedented attacks on Israeli territory by a group called Hamas. Israel retaliated by launching massive airstrikes into the Gaza Strip, a territory governed by Hamas but encircled by Israeli soldiers. The conflict continues as we speak, and world leaders are scrambling to get a handle on the situation. Now, you may be following it wherever you are, and I would not be surprised if you have very, very strong opinions about the whys and wherefores of this conflict. It's that kind of story. We're in the business of shedding light, and we thought it useful to make sense of the responses to the conflict coming out of Africa, because the continent has a complex relationship with the two sides locked in conflict right now. It's a relationship that's been changing over time, but who better than BBC Monitoring's Beverly Ochieng to take us back to the beginning?
So we know that Israel basically started off in the 1940s and they had their war of independence, and there's the contestation over the Gaza Strip, which is currently under the control of Hamas. And over the years, there have been negotiations between the two sides, the Palestinian side and Israel, over what many call the two-state solution, which is recognizing both sides as two independent states. And there have been tensions around those talks. And in the light of those negotiations, this attack happened, which was quite a surprise both for Israel as well as global powers and many countries that have been forced to have to take a stance or react to the violence that's taking place. We know that hundreds of people have been killed. People are caught in the crossfire. It's not very clear how many foreign nationals, including Africans, are caught in the violence. But now there are attempts and calls for there to be de-escalation. There are calls for there to be negotiations between Israel and Palestine so they can talk about the two-state solution. And that's leading to more tension in how people are reacting.
Now, we know that the idea of talks between the two sides leading to a two-state solution have long been almost abandoned. In fact, I read somebody saying that this latest iteration of the conflict is more sand on the grave of peace talks along the lines of the two-state solution. But this is a conflict, Beverly, that has drawn in so many different countries, as you've been saying there. How have African countries reacted to it?
Overall, I'd say there's been widespread condemnation because the latest war is just one additional to the confrontations that we're seeing taking place. There's the Russia-Ukraine war, and even closer here, we have Sudan, we have Mali, and various other countries. So countries are calling for de-escalation and restraint. The African Union had an overarching statement where they talked about going back to negotiations, the two-state solutions, but there are also areas and regions that are taking sides, and it goes back to their relationship with either party, whether it's Israel or Palestine. I think Kenya and Zambia were among the countries whose statements seemed to overtly support Israel. The President William Ruto of Kenya and the Foreign Affairs Secretary, they described Hamas's invasion as terrorism or terrorist acts, and that echoes a lot of what Israel was saying and Israel supporters. Nigeria, Uganda, Ghana, they were more neutral and they were calling for negotiations. And then South Africa, Djibouti, Sudan, Senegal, and overall the African Union, they backed Palestine and they recognized that the war is as a result of their agitation for sovereignty. And this division is because each country has its own relationship with both parties. In many instances, you find that Israel and Palestine are represented in various ways across the continent. But Israel has often been quite dominant because it has large-scale investments. There's agriculture, there's technology, there's intelligence. And then the narrative around allegations of its occupation of Palestine and areas in Palestine resonate with countries like South Africa, where you find, and even when I lived there, I used to see civil society groups holding protests accusing Israel of apartheid.
Of course, there's the historic relationship and that association that you're talking about between the African National Congress, which talks of, as you say, apartheid and settler governments, and the ANC is now in power there. So their relationship with Palestine was very, very clear, and Palestinians. But there's, of course, the complication, in a way, of Jewish people in South Africa, a very large Jewish community, and them also supporting the apartheid struggle in many cases, but also conflicted along the lines of Israel as the historic home of the Jews. So it seems like there are ever more complications on the continent concerning Israel and Palestine. What's been the historic relationship with both the Israelis and the Palestinians? Because there's been this charm offensive over the last 10 years or so on the part of Israel that you were spelling out there. But what was the historic relationship?
So obviously Israel and Palestine have a different footprint across the continent. And as I'd said, Israel has been quite a dominant power. Initially, they had recognized many of the independent states that were emerging across the continent. And then we found that there were a lot of changes, especially when the oil economy was growing in the 1990s. A lot of countries tended to have closer relations with Israel because it was providing them with technology, it was providing them with also weapons, it was providing them with intelligence, which was giving widespread support. And also the fact that Israel is heavily backed by the West, particularly the US. And then in more contemporary times, especially in 2018, when there was all the contention about the US moving its embassy to Jerusalem, there were various countries that were quite angered by that because of the contestation that has had with Palestine, but also some countries that were happy to attend that opening of the embassy in Jerusalem. Among them were the Democratic Republic of Congo, which recently said that it would be shifting its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. There was Cote d'Ivoire, there was Ethiopia, there was Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, South South Sudan. That's an array of countries. There has been closer ties with countries like Uganda, because we do remember after the Entebbe raid, there had been long-running tensions. And Uganda even played a role in ensuring the normalization of ties between Sudan, which is a majority Muslim state, which often sits very awkwardly between North Africa and Middle East, and Israel. And that led to quite a bit of disquiet in the country. So you do find that in many instances, conversations around relations between Israel and African countries and where Palestine is seen and recognized is quite contentious. Israel has attempted to be an observer in the African Union. And if you're seeing the African Union statement that seems to be in support of Palestine, it's part of the reasons why Israel has not really been able to make an inroad in this institution.
Just remind us what the Entebbe raid is.
So in 1976, there had been a flight that had been hijacked by Palestinians. It was a civilian passenger flight that was going through Tel Aviv to Paris, and it ended up in Entebbe. And Israelis had tried to intervene, but then Uganda had blocked it. And this led to tense relations between the two countries over the years. And it's only up until about 2016, when Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, visited Uganda, that there was some move towards reconciling the two countries. And there's been subsequent visits by the two countries just to placate what had happened, but also as a way of improving relations between the two.
That's BBC Monitoring's Beverly Ochieng. The highest court in Mauritius has decriminalized sexual relations between people of the same sex, saying the ban reflected colonial era rather than indigenous values. The act was criminalized by British colonialists in the 19th century, but the law has not been enforced in Mauritius in recent years. This ruling reflects a complex picture across Africa. 33 countries have decriminalized same-sex relationships. Others, like Uganda and Nigeria, have tightened their laws. Earlier this year, Uganda adopted a law that imposed the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality, which refers to the rape of children. South Africa is an outlier. It was one of the first countries in the world to scrap discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. Many people argue that homosexuality is un-African. The Supreme Court in Mauritius disagrees, saying the ban was inherited from Britain rather than a reflection of indigenous values. Richard Kagoe has been speaking to Ryan Arsik, who, along with Human Dignity Trust, campaigned for a change in the law in Mauritius. Ryan is the president of Arc-en-Ciel, an LGBTQ+ rights group. He told Richard how he felt on the day the announcement was made.
I was working from home. Everything was just normal. Like, I had a friend working with me at home. We were just chatting and all. And I got a message from my attorney saying that the judgment is out. I just freaked out. I was having I couldn't breathe. Every thought of the world went out through my mind, because I was just wondering why today, what's going on, and what happened. Suddenly the judgment is out, especially what is going to be the judgment. And eventually 15 minutes after, I got another message saying that, okay, we won. And to be honest, I couldn't even believe it. At some point, I thought I was still in my bed sleeping and dreaming about that. But it really happened, and I was just happy. And from then, I've been receiving lots of phone calls, interviews, messages, and all.
One of those surprises, I guess. But then, what does it really mean to you?
I don't have the proper words till now to describe it, but I'm just happy. I feel a bit more relief from that, not the court case, but from that constant fear of being a gay person in Mauritius, that I could be arrested and face from being in prison for being who I am and for practicing my life with another male person. So it's just a feeling of freedom, and it kind of giving that hope that one day we'll be in a better country, in a better world.
As you said, it's been a long time coming. Just describe to me what the process was like, because I guess it's not something that you started just the other day.
No, it all started during, I think, the second half of 2019. So in all, it went on for 4 years. We did the submission of the case and of the plaint in 2019. So because of COVID, the restriction, lockdown and all. So the first court trial happened in 2021, where I had to go to the witness box and put my whole private life in front of the whole bunch of people there, in front of judges and lawyers, for them to question my life, question the person who I am, and for them to also make a judgment about my personal life.
Did you feel intrusive or?
Kind of, but I had to do it with that hope that because I believe in this fight since so long. So at some point I was like, okay, if I have to not sacrifice, but putting my whole life on the public space, I have to do it, because if it was not me, maybe it would be someone else, but we have to go through this process for us to have the same rights as everyone and have the access to what we call human rights. And that day was really on the eve. I was like freaking out. All my emotions were mixed in my mind, but it happened, and it was not an easy thing because it happened at the Supreme Court. So it's not every day that we go to the Supreme Court and just fight for something. So it is a very big thing. And that was like the bigger highlight of that whole process for me as a person. And then last year, we had all the second trial, where it was now the lawyers who would be like doing their thing. And not 1 year and maybe 2 or 3 months after we got the judgment. It was a long process, but it was worth the wait.
You know, I have a copy of the judgment with me here in front of me.
Yeah.
I think one of the explanations here really stood out for me from the judges, and this is what the judges remarked, and I'll just read it out. It says, Section 250 was not introduced into Mauritius to reflect any Mauritian values, but was inherited as part of our colonial history from Britain. Its enactment was not the expression of domestic democratic will, but was a course imposed on Mauritius and other colonies by British rule. What do you make of that?
In fact, it's kind of like true, because we inherited this from our colonial time and went on in Mauritius since, I think, as far as I can remember, during the 1898, something like that. And I think we tried to get rid of that because we are in 2023 now. So some laws that was enforced in the world, in the country, are just no more valuable, and the world is changing. So I think the laws and everyone has to go in the same process.
Other countries in Africa have a different position to this. Many would criminalize, same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
What do you think makes Mauritius different?
I don't think we are different from any other countries, but it's just like it takes a little bit of courage and time for things to happen in each and every country in a different manner. And it's sad that other countries or African countries are facing a very hard time for being who they are and not having the same right as everyone.
And that's Ryan Arsik, president of Arc-en-Ciel, an LGBTQ plus rights group in Mauritius.
And Lewis is definitely one of my idols. He's definitely encouraged me to push harder for my dreams.
You've met him?
He's commented on my mum's Instagram, and he's done a post for me on Instagram, which was really motivating. But yeah, he's been my hero from the start, and I always look up to him and look to him for motivation.
Now, I've been speaking to the amazing Mika Abrams. He is 15 years old, and he's South African. He races cars, Formula 4 to be exact. Not 1 or 2 or 3, Formula 4. And if, like me, you don't quite know what that is, Mika and his mother Denise took the time to explain it. Mika says he will be a Formula 1 champion soon. And I believe him, actually. He's already been making history on the track. And history it will be if he becomes the first African champion outside of the South African Jody Scheckter, who won in 1979. Mika became the first African to make double pole. I didn't know what that meant either. So I asked after the introductions.
Mika Abrams.
How old are you?
I'm 15 years old.
And?
Denise Abrahams.
Mika's mother.
Mika's mother, correct.
What brings you to the UK?
I drive British Formula 4 in England.
Tell us about Formula 4. What is it?
So it's motorsport. It's one of the feeder series for Formula 1, and you can race all over Europe, but I chose British Formula 4 because of the exposure and the tracks and so on.
So Formula 4, is it like the under 17s or the under 15s or something like that?
Essentially, yeah. It's like a stepping stone to progress to Formula 1.
Right. Okay, so you want to become the next Formula 1 champion. The next or a Formula 1 champion in the future?
The next. Well, the first for myself, but the next Formula 1 champion for South Africa.
Is there an age limit as to when you can start racing Formula 1?
There's no age limit.
Okay. There's a sentence here that I meant to ask you, Denise, and he's on his way there to becoming the next Formula 1 champion because Mika has recently made history and is the youngest African to have done that. So can you finish the sentence for us about what is he on his way to doing next?
Sure. Well, firstly, he's the first and youngest South African of colour to receive South African Protea colours, which is the highest accolade you can receive in motorsport. So that was quite nice because he broke barriers and boundaries by becoming the first person of colour at age 14.
Mm-hmm.
He was also the second youngest in the world to win Formula 4 at age 14 and first for Africa.
Yeah.
So it's been really great. And then recently, in the last month, made history again by becoming the first African to get a double pole at Donington Park.
What's a double pole? You're going to need to educate us all. What's a double pole?
Can I let Mika explain what double pole means?
You tell me because he's going to get technical. Okay. You're going to tell me at the level
I'll tell you from a mom what a mom understands. Yeah. So at every race you have a qualifying session, and in that qualifying session, the time that you post says where you will start for the next
That's the pole
races.
Position, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm. So Mika made double pole, which meant he started first in the first race and first in the third race. So he had the fastest times for those two times. Yeah.
Okay, Mika, did your mother do a good job there?
She did amazing.
So how did you become interested in it? And as far as I can see, this is not a cheap sport. So I would like to know how you persuaded your parents to get involved as well.
So it all started in 2017 when I was 9 years old. We went to a friend's house for a family dinner, and then I got bored, so I wanted to play on the Xbox. And then out of 530 games, I chose F1, and I fell in love with the sport immediately. As soon as we got home, I asked my dad, how can I get into Formula 1? He knew a friend who did karting. I went to the racetrack the following week, and I fell in love with the sport.
So karting is how Lewis Hamilton started, isn't it?
Yes.
Then he's like the world champion.
Yeah.
Is he the world champion at the moment?
No, that's Max Verstappen.
Okay. Did Lewis Hamilton, seeing him, well, you were 9, you were small when he was at his peak, and he still sort of is, but did that sort of draw you even further into it?
100%. Lewis is definitely one of my idols. He's definitely encouraged me to push harder for my dreams.
You've met him?
He's commented on my mum's Instagram, and he's done a post for me on Instagram, which was really motivating. But yeah, he's been my hero from the start, and I always look up to him and look to him for motivation.
Okay. So Denise, when he said, Mom, I want to do this, what did you think? My child driving around in a very fast car, firstly. Secondly, we know about the accidents that have happened, and a lot of people, they say, watch Formula 1 to see whether there will be an accident. I mean, it's macabre, but there it is.
Yeah, I was a bit skeptical at first because he was so young at 10, and obviously coming from South Africa and being people of color, we weren't really exposed to motorsport. It was quite a white-dominated sport in the country, so I didn't know much about it. But my husband was a Formula 1 fan, so I think his excitement was quite a lot. So he took Mika through. I didn't even go to the track. And then when Mika went and tested, and he fell in love with it, and then we just started doing it. But I can say as a mom, I don't think I will ever get used to seeing my son drive at such high speeds. Even when he tells me he went this fast, I don't want to hear.
Do you watch?
I don't watch the starts. I turn around.
Why do the starts do that to you?
Because the start is the part of the race where everyone's trying to gain the most positions off the starting line.
So you could have collisions.
It's quite chaotic. So I don't watch, and then my husband tells me when Mika is like safe off the line and okay, and then I will turn around, but I still can't watch the whole race. I'll catch it on YouTube afterwards.
So tell me, is there a sense that young people like you are getting more and more involved in South Africa and across the continent? Or are you still a bit of an outlier, in the sense that not many people can maybe afford to do it, or they're not that interested in it?
I think it's more so just myself. There are a few others, but there's not many. It's starting to become a lot, but not many people are as interested in coming to Europe. They're more focused in doing well in South Africa, and I hope that I can pave the way for people to come to Europe from South Africa and, make it seem more accessible for other people in South Africa to come here.
What would make it more accessible, do you think?
I mean, the exchange rate doesn't help with money, but they just need to believe in themselves and come here, put in the time and effort instead of putting all their resources in South Africa. They must come do it in Europe, and that's where their talent will be showcased.
And that's Mika and his mother, Denise Abrams. Focus on Africa was put together by Daniel Zadzi, Amy Leibovitz, and Richard Kagoe. Connie Sharp oversaw the operation, and Gabriel O'Regan made it ready to air. I'm Audrey Brown, and we'll talk again next time.
Talk radio. I listen to a lot of talk radio.
95.1 FM.
Port Harcourt, are you ready? Today, 95.1 FM, the voice of the people. Radio has never been this good. Today, 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt. This is Today 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt, voice of the people.